guys, it's Charlene. Today I am back to show you how to make an awesome gift card set for him. I'm going to be using the Geometric Menagerie stamps and dies from Altenew, and I'm going to create these 4 gorgeous cards using a few other products from my stash. So here are the stamps. They are super adorable. You've got a lion, a bear, and a giraffe, and I've got some coordinating dies. I'm starting out here with some anti-static powder tool on an A2 size card panel, and I'm using some embossing ink with the giraffe stamp. I am going to create a repeating line across the front of my card with the giraffe. So here you can see I'm just checking to see how far over I need to go, and then I'm counting how many squares I've gone on my Misty stamp pad there, so that way I can repeat that same spacing for the next giraffe. So that way it looks like there's one long repeating stamp rather than just using one stamp and stamping over and over. It's a pretty cool trick if you can do this, because it makes the spacing really easy and you're not having to eyeball where to put the stamp next. This tends to work really well with vertical or portrait oriented cards. It doesn't work as well with landscape cards, which you're going to see later. So I'm going to heat emboss these with some clear embossing powder. So I'm just making sure I get all of those little parts of the giraffes, because I want them to show up really well when I do some emboss resist here in a moment. Now I can go ahead and go in with my heat gun and melt all of the embossing powder. I'm just going to be really careful to turn this in the light, so that way I can make sure I have melted all of those different areas of the embossing powder. Now I have some Post-it tape, which is very low tack, and I'm going to go ahead and put a strip down at the bottom of the giraffes, and I'm going to put a strip at the top of the giraffes. And you can see there I'm using my glass craft mat, and I'm just lining up with the lines on the mat. That way I can make sure that those pieces go straight across and not at an angle. So now I've got some lemonade ink from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm starting out here in the bottom right corner. I'm working at an angle. Next, I've brought in some citrine, and then I've brought in some pucker. So it's going from a light yellow to an orangish yellow to a red. So going back over in the reverse, just so I can make sure I get a really nice blend. Once I'm all done, I can use a microfiber cloth here to wipe off any of the excess ink that's sitting on top of the melted embossing powder, and it's gonna just shine right through. You can see there. Now I'm pulling off the tape, and we've got that glorious line. I'm going to do a modified version of the Eclipse technique here. I'm taking one of these double stitched rectangles, and I'm going to be careful to cut out a piece from the center, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to use some low tack tape to tape that border back around. This will allow me to glue down that outer border piece that was cut out, but then I can pop up the center piece using a couple of pieces of extra cardstock behind it. So it's going to have that fun 3D pop out look to it. This will make more sense as we go on. So once I've got that low tack tape on there, I'm going to go ahead and flip this over and add some liquid adhesive all the way around the edge on that tiny thin border piece. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue this directly on the top of an A2 sized card. And I'm using a top folding card. You can use a side fold, whatever works well for you. I like to try and change it up if I remember, and use different kinds of folds on my cards, which is kind of fun. So you can see there, I'm just careful to get this nice and lined up on there, and then I'm going to make sure to press down really well all the way around the edges. And just so I don't bend that inner piece at all, I'm going to use a little pokey tool here to help me lift it out of the center and pull it up. And you're going to see that low tack tape is going to come right off. I'm using highlighter tape. I love it. It never tears my paper, which is awesome. So next I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment, and this is from the Geometric Menagerie stamp set. I'm going to use black pigment ink so I can get a nice crisp image, and I've just done it down towards the bottom right underneath the strip of giraffes. Once that's done, I can go ahead and layer up this center piece. You can see I die cut out 2 more of the exact same size rectangles. That way I don't have to worry about things lining up. I know they're going to be the exact same size. I'm using some dot runner here, but certainly you could use liquid adhesive, whatever you have on hand. I just happened to grab that. So once I go all the way around the edges, I'll go ahead and glue the next one. And in fact, I believe I run out of dot runner and have to switch over to liquid adhesive. If not here, it's somewhere else in the video, but I was going along and then I ran out and I had to grab my liquid adhesive anyway, so you'll see it works great with either. Now I can go ahead and adhere this to the center part of the card, inset inside where that border area is. See, this is where I ran out of the dot runner and there's that liquid adhesive. So I'm going to pop this into the center there, and it's going to line up perfectly because it's the exact same size as that outside border piece. Is going to fit right in there. And now we have this fun look where you can see there on the right hand side and on the left hand side, it really looks pretty cool. All right, moving on to the second card, I'm going to be using the Triangle Madness die set here, and I'm using the die on the right hand side. I'm going to cut this out of a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card panel down towards the bottom right. And now I'm flipping it over, and on the back, I'm going to add some double-sided tape. And the reason I'm going to do this is I'm going to do some really easy die cut inlay. I like doing die cut inlay when I have repeating shapes, because then I don't have to spend a lot of time figuring out what piece goes where. Because those triangles on the inside of the die cut area are all pretty much the same size, I can just pop in a triangle wherever. I don't have to be really particular. I'm using some silver metallic cardstock, which I think looks awesome. And once that's all filled in there, I can move into stamping my stamp from the Menagerie stamp set. I'm doing this in some alcohol marker friendly ink. This is the black hybrid ink from Picket Studios. And once I have that stamped out, I'm going to do some super quick and easy Copic marker coloring. I'm just coloring some of the random triangles on the inside of the lion, and I'm doing it sort of sporadically but dispersed throughout the card. I'm doing this in R05 for the red, and then I have Y35 for kind of an orangish yellow, and then I have Y02 for a light yellow. And you can see there's really no rhyme or reason. I'm just sort of picking where I think the triangle might look nice colored. Once I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and pop this back into my MISTI. I did not move the stamp. I left the stamp exactly where it was when I stamped it. So that way I can go in and restamp and add some clear embossing powder and heat set that in order to have a really nice amount of shine on this cool little lion here. So you do want to make sure you get your piece right back into the corner, because you don't want to have any issues and get kind of a weird double stamping line or anything like that. Once I have that clear embossing powder on there, I can go ahead and use my heat gun to quickly melt it all and then die cut out the lion using the coordinating die. Off camera, I did go ahead and stamp out a sentiment. Again, this one is from the Menagerie stamp set as well, and heat that up with my heat gun, and it's going to look really cool. I did die cut 2 extra outlines of the lion using the same die, and I'm going to layer these up with liquid adhesive. So I'm just going to get some liquid adhesive all the way around there. I'm using Gina K Connect glue. That is one of my favorite glues. And then I'm going to just drop these on top of each other and go around the edge, kind of pinching each side together. Really easy way to get some added dimension to your card, but keep the amount of dimension down. So it's not going to be as thick as like a foam tape or something like that. Now I'm going to cut a tail there on the end of my sentiment, and you do that just by cutting off the edge, then you cut up the center, and then you go from the corner to the center on each side. I generally hold my scissors with my fingers on the bottom as well, and that helps me keep my scissors steady when I'm doing this. I'm going to add a little bit of glue to that sentiment flag at the end, and then I'm going to glue it to the back of my lion so I can decide where to put it. I've put some double-sided tape on the back of my main card panel there, and I just took off a little bit of it so that I could line up one edge and make sure I was getting it straight onto my card. And then I can remove the rest of that release tape and lay down the rest of the card panel, and it is going to line up perfectly with no problems, and I don't have to worry about messing up when I am trying to get it all on there. So there you can see I'm going to just add my lion and my sentiment and pop that on there. Isn't that cute? I love this as a masculine card. I think it's just so fun and interesting to look at. I've added a couple of black gems because, you know, guys like bling too. They like shiny things. So I thought some sparkly black gems would look really nice on this card. And that's going to finish this card up, and we can jump right into the next card here, moving right along. I've got a lot to show you guys. For this third card, I am going to do a repeating pattern on my background, and I'm using the bear, and I'm starting him out there on the right hand side, and I'm stamping him in pucker. I'm going to alternate between pucker, citrine, and lemonade, and these are going to go across the card in 2 rows. I will trim the card panel down, and you can see I started out trying to use my MISTI to do the spacing, and that's why I said earlier in the video this tends to work better when you are working with a portrait style card rather than a landscape style card like this, because the issue is you can't move your card panel as far in your MISTI as you're going over. So what I just did is I went ahead and got it started so I could see kind of what line I needed to put my stamp on inside the MISTI door, and then I just moved my stamp along and made sure that everything was lining up, and I tried to do kind of one color at a time once I had that initial couple stamped. So there you can see it looks really cool with that repeating pattern of the colors. And now I'm going to stamp my sentiment out. I'm using the Best Sentiments stamp set. This is a really cool little stamp set. These kind of look like old-fashioned label tape. I really like that, and I always stamp these in black pigment ink so that I can get a nice dark and crisp image, and then you can see the sentiment is in the negative area in the white. So I've got a piece of yellowish kind of cardstock here. It's a little orangey, and it is cut to an A2 size card so I can cover the entire card base. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue on my little bear section, but I have decided to pop it up because it's gonna look really nice popped up over the top of that yellow. So I went ahead and cut a couple of pieces of cardstock and just adhered all of these with liquid glue, and then I can glue everything down on top of the yellow piece of cardstock, and so that's going to peek out towards the bottom. Once I have that done, I can add my sentiment on there, and I am going to pop that up with some adhesive foam. I do love dimension, as you guys know, but I was trying to keep the dimension down more so than usual on all of these cards for a couple of reasons. One, because this is a gift card set, so I don't want the recipient who's going to be using these to struggle to get things in and out of the envelopes. And 2, because not everyone loves dimension as much as I do, and it's a gift. So I've got some pretty yellowish kind of orange sequins that I'm adding on here because, again, guys like bling too. And I'm just kind of sporadically adding them on there. I used 5 and dispersed them throughout those cool bears. So moving right along, we're going to jump into our 4th card. I'm starting out with lemonade, working in some citrine and again some pucker, creating a nice ink blend here. I'm going to go back in reverse and go back to the citrine and then back to the lemonade. We're going to be doing a really fun faux watercolor technique. I'm going to use the Wish Big sentiment here, as well as the lion from the Geometric Menagerie stamps. So I've got some anti-static powder down. I did wait until my ink was completely dry before I did this, and now I'm using some Versamark embossing ink, just making sure to get really nice coverage on everything because I want to get this in one go. I don't want to have to double stamp. For some reason, it does not work well for me when I'm using the embossing ink. So once I get that done, I'm going to come in with some Wow Black embossing powder, and I am going to melt everything using my heat gun. Now you could do the lion with clear embossing powder if you wanted to before you do your ink blending, but I think this card looks really nice with the shiny black lion as well as that shiny black sentiment on the front of the card. So once that's done, I'm going to come in with my Distress water sprayer and I'm going to spritz this pretty well to get a bunch of fun water droplets and kind of watercolory look. Now I've come in with my paintbrush and I'm spreading the water around on the inside of the lion. This works really well because all of that melted embossing powder, it makes it so that the water stays inside those areas. And then I can go ahead and just use my inks and tamp them out on my glass board. You can use an acrylic block if you don't have a glass board, and then I can get my paintbrush wet and dip it in the ink and then go along on the inside of the lion to darken up the various areas on there. You can really see this is very pronounced with the red here in particular down towards the bottom right of the lion, and it just creates this fun dimension. So I went ahead and cut that down off camera using that rectangle die, and now I'm adhering this to a piece of black cardstock that is just slightly larger, so then I have that nice black border that is tying in with the rest of things. I've got some double-sided adhesive. It's really easy to do, so I pulled off the top part so it would line up, and then you can just remove the rest of the release paper and do it easy peasy. I'm adding a piece of craft foam to the back to add a little bit of dimension, and then I'm going to glue this whole piece to my A2 sized card panel, and there's going to be just a little bit of white around that black border. So we'll have the white border with then a thin black border with then the main card panel, and I think that just makes the card really stand out, even though it is kind of a clean and simple card. And again, here I've added some bling, adding some shiny gold baubles, and I think those look really nice with the red and orange kind of tones of the ink. So there's that finished fourth card. All right, guys, I hope you picked up some tips and tricks today. There is my finished gift packaging that I've put together. If you want to see how I put together this gift packaging, be sure to check out the video I have linked at the end, which shows a gift set that I have made for her. This, I want to mention, was made as part of my coursework for the Altenew Certified Educator program. If you're interested in learning more about that, head over to my blog that's linked down in the description. And please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so I can continue bringing you more crafty content in the future. Until next time, happy crafting.